Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, hello and welcome back. It is the last full week in March of 2018. It is 3/26. It is Franklin Day. And if you know what that means to me, then you know what that means to me. And we are getting back to the normal schedule, so to speak, after finishing up a couple of long-standing, long gestating projects. You know, it struck me the other day when I was watching or thinking about the Christopher Johnson that the whole movie is predicated on the fact that Christopher Johnson has promised Wickes that he would return in 3 years. And it's interesting that the 3-year interval is about as long as it took to get that model finished. So if I had started it, and he would be, what I'm saying is it took 3 years to finish. So on to newer and better things. I'm getting back to my preferred schedule of doing a ship and a figure at the same time, because it's easy to bounce back and forth back between those types of things, and it keeps my brain engaged, and these days anything that does that is good news. And so I've got 2 new projects, and I was going through the stash, going through the closet kits, and pulling things and looking at things that I had promised myself I was going to get around to eventually. And that they don't always work out this way, but this particular group has a theme, and the theme is pilot. And let me explain that to you as we get down to the work table. Okay, this is the table full of what I'm working on this time around. It is and I'm calling this a pilot twofer, because on the on the right, you will see a figure kit of the character known as Pilot from Farscape, and this is a hunk of junk production. Same people who made Christopher Johnson. This is Tony. Excellent sculptor, excellent kit producer. I don't think this kit is in production anymore. I've had it for a couple of years, and I'm now just getting around to it because, well, you know, my stellar track record of just jumping right on kits as soon as I get them and building them right away. If Christopher Johnson has taught you nothing, it will have taught you that I sometimes will take my sweet time getting around to building a kit. But it was actually the fact that I finished Christopher Johnson that inspired me to get back on to doing this one, because a lot of the same methods, it being an organic shape and, you know, all that. But I came up with something that's going to make me have more fun with it, make it more enjoyable. I'm going to try to employ magnets as much as possible so that these arms are, which would normally be really hazardous and snap off at a moment's notice, I'm going to see if I can join them on here with magnets in such a way that I can take them off for moving it around and that sort of stuff. Plus, it'll add to the posability factor of it, which will make it more enjoyable. And then on the left-hand side, this is a kit that I did pick up at Wonderfest last year, and I'm just getting around to. This I got this from George at Timeslip, and it is a ship from a background, what would you call a deep background ship from Space 1999, and it was called the Pilot Ship from the Bringers of Wonders 2-parter episode, which a friend of mine and I at the time when we saw it called those episodes the Big Mac Attack, because the monsters were incredibly ridiculous looking and looked like huge walking piles of lettuce. And we at the time, I believe McDonald's was running a promotional theme of the Big Mac Attack, and that just stuck, that we called those big shambling Sigmund and the Sea Monster type of monsters the Big Mac Attack. But anyway, this ship is from those 2 episodes, and it looks to be a fairly straightforward and not too complicated build. Choice for there's a chance to do some nice scratch building. I don't know if I'm going to try to light the engines. I probably could, but there's some cleanup and some carving out that has to be done, and painting of orange, which is, I would say, next to silver and metallics, orange is my least favorite because I can have a hard as a heck time trying to get a good, even orange color. And I know Jerry Anderson, really liked using orange almost as much as Irwin Allen. And if I'm going to be building that hawk kit in the near future that's supposed to be coming out this year, I'm going to have to get used to painting orange. So just nothing to do but to grin and bear it and paint these orange stripes once I get to it. But again, the build itself should be fairly easy. The build itself should be fairly uneventful. The painting is where the fun is going to be, which is how I like it. Well, good morning. It is Tuesday, and work is progressing on Farscape pilot today. And what I want to do is put the magnets in place because I think that's an attractive thing to do on a Tuesday morning. Using these a little bit larger sized, stronger magnets for what I'm calling the shoulder joint. And then I'll use a smaller, the Wii size magnets for the wrist joints. So I don't want to get this too close to the camera because these are some strong magnets. But I need to drill holes in here and then in the tops of the arms there, which means I've got to sand those off first. Okay, well, we're going to have to back up and rethink, give up some ideas on this pilot, because these magnets, as strong as they are, will not hold up the weight of an arm from there. So I tried my best. I put in magnets right there, and I wanted to do this primarily so that anytime I needed to move said pilot, I wasn't worried about snapping off these arms. But by the time you added by the time you added the wrist joint, the elbow joint, and the forearm, and then this heavy arm on the front of it, yeah, the weight was just too much at this point. I'm still using magnets in the wrists because they certainly will hold, they'll certainly hold the weight of the wrist. Plus, I still get a measure of posability with the hands when I do that. And also, it will still make it easier to move when if I need to move it, I can still snap the hands off and put them back on. The elbow joints, if these were made of something heavier than resin, a metal of some sort, then they might have worked, but I may be able to pin the elbow so that the elbow joint will work, but I cannot do anything with this joint because it is too fragile to make it turn radially. But I may be able to. It's going to be an ugly action figure looking joint rather than a nice sculptural joint, but I may be able to do something with that. We'll just have to see whether that's going to give me any use out of it, or whether I would be better off if I just put those in one position and cemented them and puttied them in and kept that one pose. You can see here on the illustration for the artwork for the cover that those are meant to be quite far out and stretched out joints. I had thoughts of doing something like this where I could move this about, but we may not get that luxury. I tried. Hey, you never know until you try. So tell me, do I look any different to you today? Not the fact that I am officially a year older, but also had to pick up a new camera. You're seeing me on a new camera. It's new on this end. It may not look new to you on your end, because this camera, as good as it was and as long as it served me, this thing was screwing up. As it was shorting out. It still works sometimes. I'll probably take it on the road with me when I am doing things that are more rough and tumble, but as far as the day-to-day use that I use here, I've gotten my shekels out of that. I'm not begrudging it a bit. But today we are back at the pilots, and I think I had already said that I had lost my my ability to do the arms as magnetic attachments, because while this looks fine and works dandy, as soon as you put any appreciable weight on it, it does not hold up, which is a shame, because there is a episode in the early season that I wanted to duplicate, where the happy crew of the, oh, everybody gets along and oh, we're a happy crew. Well, they rip off one of Pilot's arms to sell to a less than scrupulous trader, which signaled right at the beginning that this was not going to be your typical sci-fi show. I'm going to see if there's a way to possibly still do that with that arm, to be able to rip it off to show that, but I am limited in what I can do action figure-ish wise. The joints that I wanted to accomplish here, I am not going to be able to, because of the weight of things. It was the truth in most of the world. It's the weight of things. The wrists I still will be able to do. So looking forward to that. But I've been doing that thing that you got to do with resin kits, which is sanding seams and taking care of stuff, and I still got to hollow out the bottom here. Well, I need to decide how much of the bottom I need to hollow out. I'm not going to light them, obviously. So if I can get them on a good flat base, that may be all it takes. And as for the other pilot, this ship, see if you can help me spot the noticeable flaw in this design. Now, I won't say that anybody has, they're not trying to put one over on you or anything like that. It's been addressed in the instructions, but it is a rather noticeable flaw, and I am trying to make this work so that I can show you what's going on with it. Hold the phone. Hold everything. There you go. That's working. And that's working. Okay, here is the pilot ship. And these balls are they're not solid, but they're heavy resin. And you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. They're going to start drooping, because it's a tiny, tiny little wee joint of a tab right here. That's the only thing that's holding that up. And you know, as soon as it sits in here for any length of a time, it's going to start drooping. Well, the instructions, Matt, they take that into account. Let me see if I can find the reading of it here. For added strength, it is very advisable to run a rigid piece of metal or carbon fiber rod, not included, approximately 1/8 inch in diameter and 10 3/4 inches long, through the spherical pods and the main body before attaching the outer end caps. This will prevent the pods from sagging, because it is normal for resin under strain to warp over extended periods of time. So yay for them, yay on them for bringing this up and letting you know it's going to happen. But boo on them, and George, if you're listening, boo on you, for not only not including said rod. I mean, come on, 10 inches of metal rod, 1/8 inch in diameter. It's not going to break the bank on a kit that's this pricey. And B, not including drilling guides. If you're going to do that, why not include a guide for drilling, and maybe even put the hole there for you. So now I've got to go through all of these, all straight the whole way through, and figure out where my level hole is going to be, so that I can drill it out and then put the rod in and epoxy it in. It's like telling you there's a problem without telling you how to fix it. It's like, yes, we know you need to do this. Good luck. I mean, it's why not do that? So that's my gripe and whine for today. But let's get back to this fun stuff. Well, good morning and welcome back. It is Wednesday, and today is the day I realize what stupid things I've done. I told you yesterday that I had been able to ascertain that these magnets were not strong enough to hold the hands up, to hold the arms in position. They're just not that strong. Well, stupidly, I had already gone ahead and embedded magnets in the 3 arms, and they're lost now. I can't get them back out because they are, trust me, they are embedded, and I can't even drill them. I can't even drill them back out because of the strength of those metal magnets. They just won't drill out. So, and I checked the episode this morning. This is the arm that was removed, and I was hoping against hope it was this one, because that's the one I didn't have a magnet in yet. But I was hoping to just put in a long peg that I could pull out. Then that way I could leave the arm stationary, and then just pull the whole arm out when I wanted to. But can't do that because of reasons. So that's a no-good. I can still put the magnets in the wrists, and I'm going to do that, and that will give me a measure of posability plus a measure of protection when I go to move this guy around. Like I said, I can take the hands off. I was still thinking maybe I could put these arms on pegs, just really long pegs at what I'm calling the shoulder here, so that I could, when I want to move it around, I can remove the arms, but I can't unless I can find a way to get these magnets out. And they are big, and they are metal, and they will not drill out. So I'm kind of screwed on that. So that'll teach me to think the whole thing through before I just go ahead and start putting magnets in willy-nilly. So, and if you've ever had magnets in your willy-nilly, you'll know what a pain that can be. So there we go. I'm going to have to find a way to see if I can drill those things out. We'll find out. And then we'll be back on this other pilot ship, which I will learn, hopefully this time, to take things a little bit more slowly on. Well, here you go. If you want to make your liar out of yourself, put it on tape. Yes, it took some doing, but I got all those magnets out, and all it cost me were these 3 tools. These hardened dental tools, yes, they are essentially useless now, because I've broken the tips off of all of them. Actually, this 4th one didn't fare any better. So those all go out, and I beg my dentist for some new tools next time I go. But I've got all those out. And I went ahead and drilled out the holes. What that's going to allow me to do is to go in and extend some pegs on these and put them in so that I can remove them as I need to, or actually, since I will be able to twist them on that axis, I can do a level of posability. So what I need to do now is to add some rod to the ends of these so that I can insert them that way. I was thinking about these up front arms, and this seems to be, well, let's see, let me get a better example. Okay, that seems to be about as tight of a joint as you can make. I think what I'm going to do is actually fold or cut into that so that I can make a really tight joint, because these ones up front, I think I want to make really tight elbows. So I'm just it's gonna take some surgery and some sculpting on that to get that to happen. Okay, if you step back, you can see what a shambles, what a virtual disaster area I am making of my table. I need to put some tools away and clean up. But what I've done here, the important thing is I went and cut my metal rod for the pilot ship. And this I made bigger than the instructions. The instructions said 1/8 of an inch. I happen to have this laying around from back when I was shopping for metal rods for the spine of the Discovery. So waste not, want not, I say. Use what you've got on hand. So I drilled it out a little bit larger and fit it in place, and marked it and cut it off with a Dremel with a metal cutting blade in it. But I'm trying to do this with one hand. Not good, not easy to do. Look at this mess. So glue this in place. I'm going to put some epoxy in there, epoxy it in place, and I think I'm going to use the white 2-part epoxy, which means I have to go to the store and buy some more, because it seems to be I am out of that. but that's what I like to use when I am packing something in place that is, I need all kinds of reinforcement for. And since I've opened up the back of this, like you're supposed to fit the bottom plate in, I can get to the inside of that hole. So what I want to do is, I guess, run out to the store, pick up some of that 2-part epoxy. I've also epoxied some posts onto the end of the upper arms so that I can do this, which is to be able to pull the arms out and place them back in when I am painting or moving, or, I mean, personally, that's really going to help me in the painting of the body, since I won't have the arms in place. Plus, I will be able to paint the arms better since I've got a handle now, and it'll give me something for the clamps to clamp onto. But one last thing I need to do before I put my tools away is I need to do to the wrists, do to the other 3 wrists what I did to this one, which is to smooth them down, clean them off, and embed the tiny magnets in them so that I can put the magnets back in the wrists. I will be using that. So, almost done with the heavy equipment. And since the weather has turned quite nice out today, it's still very windy but warm, I will be able to start thinking about getting primer coats on these things, which is very important in the next day or so. Get them primed and ready to go. So it's progress, but it's messy progress. First of all, I brought this out in the room here to show you how I think I'm going to end up displaying this on this half base. Pilot is about, if not exactly, the right scale, maybe a little bit larger scale to the action figures that came out, decades ago now. About the time the series was out, it's when these figures came out, and it's about that size. I'm trying to figure, the episode I saw, they showed them pulling out that arm, but the arm was a little bit smaller than that when they had it all pulled out. But when the characters put their hands on Pilot's face, each hand covers about half the face, which I think maybe makes that these figures a little small, but I think it still works as a display. Anywho, here's a problem that's cropped up with this kit, and I've tried several times to remedy it. I don't know what to do. This has got a heck of a wingspan. This has got a very impressive wingspan, and all of these I have designed so that they will come out. They have a limited ability to have posability to them. This one is the one that is giving me problems because its elbow, I can't really pull the hands in close to Pilot's chest like I wanted to because the arms are too long for that. Even though I went through and I distorted this joint, I went through and I distorted that joint to make it cross into itself like it really shouldn't, even though I'm going to go back in and like sculpt that shoulder or that elbow. I'm going to resculpt that elbow. The thing with it is because there's not enough meat between the arm, the shoulder socket, and the bottom of where the character is, I either need to raise this up on a platform again, which I don't know how practical that's going to be, or I need to do something to shorten this arm because the way it sits, it actually rests, the elbow rests below the plane of the bottom of the kit. So what I'm thinking, since this here is the arm that was sacrificed, this was the arm that they yanked out of Pilot, and the episode was DNA Mad Scientist of the first season. I'm thinking what I'd like to do, since it's only a fractional difference, is I would like to cut some length out of this arm. And I think what I'm going to do is take this handy saw, cut maybe 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch out of here, and then bring it up and then resculpt it. And my rationalization is that when it grew back a little short. And that's how I'm going to disguise it, and that's how I'm going to rationalize it. Because I really don't want to sit this up on a higher base. I think it's got enough base as it is, because everything else on the back of it kind of you know, where the hood comes up and the spine goes down the back. It's all kind of predicated on ending at the same place here. So if I bring it up, then I'm introducing a whole bunch of problems. And really, it's all coming down to where I think this shoulder, even though this looks longer or looks lower, the arm is at wider of an angle, so it is coming out further. And when it comes out further, it, by the time you get to here, see, it's up off the ground. But when you pinch that one in towards the body more, it hits the base. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten that arm just a wee bit and then reattach it. Well, that works so well. I think I'm going to do that to the other front arm just on general principle, just to shorten them down, just to shorten both of them down. But yeah, that got it up off the ground. Alrighty, look at that. Lovely. There you go. I cut this. This is the size of the chunk I took out of the length of the arms, and I think they both look the better for it. They look a little bit better, and they give them some more life, other than the fact that they don't look like a rubber, you know, cookie cutter stamp outs of the same arm 4 times. Gives it a little bit more uniquity. Okay, I think at the end of the day, which this is, I'm happy with the final formation of Pilot's arms, and after a little bit of sanding, he'll be ready for primer tomorrow. And on this table, this is where we're going to leave this Pilot for the rest of the day. Yep, he is, that's about as level as I can make it, I think. Everything is good, level, and square. And this will be setting up overnight. And it's getting kind of heavy. So now I'm wondering, even though these landing gear are reinforced and have metal in them, I am wondering now whether that's going to be enough or whether I'm going to choose to use this side mount thing here. It was included on the model as, because it's on the filming model, but it was basically, this was the side mount for the filming model. So I'm debating whether or not I'm going to resurrect that little puppy and use it, but we'll have to see whether or not it would be balanced enough. This is awfully front heavy now, and of course we've got this front landing gear. So we'll have to see. Then we'll know. Alrighty, there is one last thing I want to do this evening before I close up for the night. And that is going to be that I want to throw some epoxy sculpt in these elbow joints. And what that's going to do is allow it to set up overnight. And I can do a little bit of sculpting on them tonight, but they'll set up. And then tomorrow I can do more shaping when I can be a little rougher with it. So let's do that. Well, good morning and happy Thursday to everybody out there in TV land. We are moving right along here with the Space 1999 pilot ship. And I've got it up on its gear today. That was a bit of a fun thing because you kind of had to put everything in place and then delicately balance it while the glue set. And here I have proof of something that I kind of doubted when I first got it. It said that the legs were reinforced with metal cast in there, and I didn't see that because, frankly, there was no metal sticking out of either end. And in my experience with cast in parts in the past has always meant that there was, you know, some metal sticking out that either needed to be filed off or otherwise covered. And I didn't see that, so I'm wondering, okay, well, you know, did they cheap out and not do that? Since I didn't get my metal rod, you know, through the center here. So, quite by accident, I had a magnet get close to one of these guys. And yes, the magnet sticks to it, so that I can attest to you that there is metal inside these legs. There you go. So good news there. So once I got it up on its legs and kind of got them in the right orientation, it's tough not to do because those posts right there are in the perfect setup. So they will splay the legs out the way you want them. You just need to make sure they hit the ground and also you have to glue on the foot pads at the same time, and that angle is not always easy to calculate. So it's best to just set it all up, dry fit it, mark it where the, you know, put little witness marks where the pieces should line up, and then go, I had to put some, what I did was 5-minute epoxy so that they wouldn't dry or set up right away. I was afraid if I had used CA, it would have actually glued in place before everything had a chance to sit. So slower curing was actually the best idea for that. I have not glued in the front landing gear because I want to be able to take those off and paint them, and I will still be able to take this out and take this plate off the bottom. So taking the plate off the bottom means I can paint this independently of the rest of the body. But I think last bits to put on here are these, I don't know what's, that go on the front, and the engines that go on the back. And I'm thinking of doing all of that construction before I prime and paint. Lately I've been on a kick of painting sub-assemblies and then putting them together, and then I invariably have to, you know, pull them back off, or the paint doesn't stick, or the glue doesn't stick because I've painted over it and all that kind of stuff. So nothing really hurting me or keeping me from finishing construction here. The balls have dried in overnight. They look good. I mean, they look good from this angle. They look good from the front. About the only angle they don't look wonderful from is the side. But, and this one is the culprit. It looks like it's crooked, but it's not really. Again, what happened is since I needed to have a flat and level space for them to sit while they were curing, I put these guys in the bottom and set them on this glass so that I would have a nice stable flat surface for them that I know is the same level, and set them like that, and they sat on there just fine as they were curing. It actually balances on those. It balanced on these guys and this bar, which all ended up being the same height. So that's where I got my level mark from, and that's how it sat. So a long way around to that, to saying I need to put these guys on the hull and the engines in, and maybe these steps in, and then I will be able to get this thing ready for priming today. Okay, well, as you can see by this table full of stuff, everything is primed and drying now, so I can think of no better time to go out and grab some lunch, maybe come back, do some yard work. Yes, it's that time of year again. But everything is in a state of prime. It is a prime condition I find myself in, and I whipped up this neat little foam tree to put the arms on while I am waiting for them to dry. So that comes back and rests on that with a smiling face, or his dour face, and all of the hands are magnetized to this pipe while they are drying. Show a little backbone, will you? That is drying. Of course, Crichton is still standing there just watching all this stuff go by. And those are the bits of the 1999 pilot ship. So we're at the hurry up and wait stage. Well, I have just come back in. Well, not just. There was a couple of... Well, I'm back from doing a few hours of yard work. Not enough to kill myself, but enough to put a dent in what needs done. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time doing some research here. And what I've done is I've taken some screen caps from DVDs of the episode. Like, again, this is from the Bringers of Wonder, the Big Mac Attack. And just going through, and yeah, there's not very good screen caps because it was kind of small in the picture, but it is enough to give me some indication of how things are supposed to look, a bare minimum at least. I think there was one picture. There you go. This was from the behind the scenes stuff, and it's probably the best example I have of the color breakdown on the Pilot from 1999. It's got shows me where all these colored stripes are, painting in that darn orange, which is not my favorite color, but enough to tell me where the orange goes, and the black. And I think I'm going to try to do something on these that is going to be, when I say these, I mean these guys right here, and probably the stripes on the landing gear. I'm going to try to use some orange vinyl on that so that I don't have to try to paint as much. I think I can do orange striping on that. So I am going through and looking at the Pilot ship and seeing how it looks and all that kind of good stuff. And then I'm also, oops, I almost gave my whole surprise away. Go back through here, and then we're back into the much bigger, better pictures of Pilot from Farscape. But Pilot from Farscape is 99% lighting, because you very rarely ever saw this creature, the Muppet itself, without, I mean, just in broad daylight, or in studio lights that didn't have this atmospheric lighting on it. Here you can get an idea how big Crichton is up against, see his hand, how much room the hand takes up on his neck. So it makes me think that those action figures are pretty close to the right size. But here we have, these are shots that are taken there. This shot here is within 2 or 3 frames of each other, and you can see what a difference the lighting makes. So trying to find a picture of the Muppet, of the prop, for lack of a better term, without some sort of stage lighting on it is next to impossible. I have 2 of them that I've been able to find. Here is one, and here, oh, 1, 2, 3. There's the 3 of them. These are the only pictures I have that show what Pilot looks like without stage lighting on them. This is just normal behind the scenes pictures. So I can gather that there is a ivory, creamish color here for these features. There is a more red / burgundy on those features. His face is naturally more of a purple with a whiter snout. His eyes are yellow. The eyes were never a problem. Those are easy, but the basic colors, and then we're back into that. There's the purplish blue face, the yellowish ivory here, the reddish on the sides. That's probably the best picture of Pilot's face without stage lighting on it. But you go with what you remember, and of course everything is, this is probably the closest to how you remember seeing anything lit. So you use these references. But from that you can see the underlying colors that are being lit up here. That's probably the best picture I have of the 2 of them. That's quality wise. But you can really see the detail in here. But you kind of think of, do you paint it to look like the lighting, or do you paint it to look like the prop? And I am going to be painting this to look like lighting. I'm going to be finding a look that's got this teal light on the top of it, and it's got some purples and reds underneath it, and it's going to allow me to really go nuts with the color, some bright colors that I'm not used to using on other models before. I can just pick some colorful things and run with it, knowing that underneath it all there is this kind of color going on, but adding to it. This is probably the look I'm going to be shooting for with this kind of coloration. But this gives me what the details on the arms look like, as far as on the, you can tell on the bottom side of it is whiter and not as mottled as the back of it, where you can see this mottling here, and dots, for lack of a better term, the spotted stuff going on the top of his carapace there, and on the back and on his arms and on the top of his claws. You can see what areas have that kind of marking and what areas don't. Here again you can see what kind of detailing we've got going on here, which will allow for some good funky texture stuff. See, look at those ones. This, you can tell this might have been repainted recently, because those are very obvious and clear. But that's the kind of fun stuff I'm doing today, because I'm too tired to do anything else, and also letting the primer coats dry. And then I'll see what kind of work needs sanded. And there's a good contemplative look, so I might go with some of these purples and greens. Yeah. There's a detail there on the claws that I really want to try to get more research on and duplicate this. But you see this kind of squiggly detailing. That's going to be fun. And I'm starting to drift off. So that's it for today. Well, good morning all. It's Friday, last work day of the week, and I wanted to take a minute in between bouts of the plotter to show you how I've got my booth set up, spray booth set up for the whitening of the scout ship. You putting on a coat of tamiya, and usually when I am just doing little bits of painting, detail painting, I don't usually go through the trouble of setting up the booth and all of that. But for when I'm doing big covering coats and where there's a lot of continuous spray, then that's just going to leave a cloud of spray mist in the air. Then I want to set the booth up, and what you can't see is it's in the window. Behind here is the little vent that's going straight outside, and when I turn it on, all the air gets sucked down like it's supposed to and goes out exhaust to the outdoors. And what I'm doing is I want to get a nice coat of the white, not too heavy, but a nice coat of the white on the scout ship today. And that's probably where it'll sit for the weekend. I probably won't start painting any details in, but I want to get a good white base coat in and let that be drying over the weekend, so that when I start with the oranges and the blacks and the silvers next week, it will have a good base to do that. So I'm seeing how much white I've got on. Let me turn this off. It's noisy. I'm seeing how much white I've got left, and then whether I need to run out and pick up any more today, or whether I can do that more at a leisurely pace over the weekend. So that's what I'm doing here. Okay, and here we have Pilot all put together, Farscape Pilot all put together. This is just sat together, but this is how good this kit is that even without glue, the head stays exactly where it's supposed to. Of course, all those arms are removable, and I can start putting some base colors on this. And that's what I'm going to do for this weekend, or before the weekend, is get the base colors at least on the body. Maybe not on all the arms, but leave the detail painting for next week. Okay, here's a good spot to leave Pilot's body in for a bit. It's got the two main colors masked in, and I'll let those dry and ruminate for a while before we start putting the shadows and the highlights in. And then I gotta find a good salmon-y color for those, and I got bluish gray going down the back here. Okay, I think this is a fair place to leave Pilot for the time being. I've got the major colors masked in, and I should be able to do all of the shading and tinting and highlighting from this point. But I think this is a good place to leave it. Really like what's happening with the colors on the arms, with the what I'm calling the shark shading, which is the darker on top, lighter on bottom, sort of like the way sharks are colored. And the purple face is coming out, just the nice bit of contrast to all of the this dark teal. And yeah, this is all working out nicely. So we'll let this sit for a while, then we'll come back in and define the colors a little bit more. And that, good people, is where we're going to leave it for this week. Got a lot of work done on the pilots, or pilot squared, 2 pilots. Got the 1999 pilot all built up, and got a good primer white coat on it, ready for its gussying up next week. That's this guy right here. Nice and white. One thing about the Space 99 aesthetic, it was white and orange and black, and silver, and that was pretty much it. So not a lot of rainbow colors to choose from here. No, we save all the rainbow colors for the Farscape pilot, which I can't really pick up because it's kind of delicate. I will make like a crew member and yank an arm off so that I can show you. I can wave goodbye. But slightly disappointed about the one set of magnets, but being able to use these rods, same difference, and still being able to use magnets in the wrist was a neat thing. And I got some posability out of the elbows, but not the closing and opening. That was never going to happen, because when I tried to do it and tried to pin it from the side, excuse me, it looked just too action figure-ishy. You know what that, I mean, you all seen action figures, you know what that joint looks like on the knee or on the elbow. It's just ugly. So we're got the base colors loaded in on Farscape pilot. Let's see if I can pull his little beaner off here so that I can show you his wee little beaner. There you go. Basic colors are in, and now all I need to do now is the highlights and the shadows, and then all the little squiggly bits, the little patterning on his claws and on his carapace and all the other parts. Those need to be done really before the I need to do the highlighting first, and then put all those little details in, and then do the color washes on top of that, because those are kind of buried in that layer. They're on top of the highlights, but they're under the washes. So that's where they need to fit in on this. So until next week, but we'll be doing that very thing. Be good to each other, and we'll see you here next time.